I tell you what, it is lovely, lovely, lovely to see you all here. I'm incredibly grateful for you all for coming. It makes all the months of planning and putting things together, it does make it worthwhile. And I'm sorry if I sound like some crappy American actress of the Oscars, but it's a bit difficult to thank people without sounding like a crappy American actress from the Oscars.
Don't start.
Of course I'm not going to fucking cry. What do you think I'm, a puff? I didn't know what I was going to do this afternoon. I had vague visions of me standing up and trying to give a structured Tony Blair type speech. You know, the end of the party conference when the fucking Prime Minister comes up, has to explain why the economy is in such a shit state, but also wants to try and get cheers and claps from the crowd. Well, fuck that. You guys are my friends, my colleagues, but most importantly, we are part of a community. We are a small part of an international community of people who are interested in weird shit and people who are trying to find out the answers to this mystery, to the puzzles of mystery animals which have intrigued mankind ever since mankind was mankind, really. And when I look around and I see people who've never met each other before, people who I only know as Mr. S. Smith from Bradford, because once every 3 months we type out the address labels and shove them on the magazines, to actually meet them and have someone come out and say, "Hey dude, it's me!" and we shake hands, I find out who he is, we buy each other beers. It is an absolutely mind-fucking experience. I do apologise to any children or people of a tender disposition in the audience. Oh, for fuck's sake. What are you going to do? Come in, go out and go, "Excuse me, I'm the owner of the Red Cortina, please."
It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Oh, for God's sake, Miss Anderson. Never listen to an art historian. She's probably now going to do a sort of didactic analysis of George's, is there any one food? Yes, there is food. It is food for the soul, and this is a metaphor.
I've already done an analysis of George's colour sense.
Gail, you're a darling. I love you incredibly.
But shut up.
But it's rather a good idea that you said that you wouldn't marry me when I drunkenly asked you in the back of that taxi in London 2 years ago.
Oh yes.
Like I have said to my friend Ronan on many occasions, I believe that wives are the opium of the people. And at the grand old age of 45, I'm quite enjoying being an old git. In fact, it's rather good being an old git. It means I can complain about the kids. I can say, "Oh, I don't like their music, it hasn't got proper lyrics, it hasn't got proper tunes. Whatever happened to the Sex Pistols and the Clash, eh?" I mean, fuck it, if you compare the bloody awful row that Matthew was making this morning with some god-awful rave stuff, I would prefer to come down and listen to Napalm Death or Crass, you know. When you go dum 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 dum, you think, "Oh fucking hell, no, it's too early in the morning. Matthew, you're making my house sound like a council estate." Anyway, we're getting slightly off the topic.
What do you mean bringing the standards up? Sorry.
Look, we'd have brought the standards up if you've got a burnt out Cortina on fucking 4 bricks outside my front door. But we are moving away from the subject. But fuck it, it's my party and I'll digress if I want to. Today I'm 45. When I was 7 years old, I lived in Hong Kong. And my mother, every Thursday night... Did I hear someone say snap?
Yes.
When were you in Hong Kong, dude?
I'm 47, and when I was 7 years old, I was in...
Fucking hell, you look much younger than me, that is not fair!
47?
Yeah.
It's sure.
I always think I'm pretty good because I look younger than him. And he is younger than me. You're 47. You bastard. When were you in Hong Kong?
Something like 63 to 65.
Shit, where do you live? Bloody hell, I lived up top. You know, at the top of the Peak Tram?
Yeah.
Top bit terminus of the Peak Tram, come out, big car park, left hand side, big white block of flats with a green dome.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Oh, fucking hell, what were you, on drugs all the time? But that was when my dad did. You were 7? What's that got to do with it? Well, I mean, does the idea of being 7 and being on drugs somehow mutually exclusive? But when I was, you'll be able to sort of confirm this, Terry. Hong Kong in the 60s was so completely divorced from the rest of the world. It was just this weird place. It was like being brought up in a P.G. Wodehouse novel. It had absolutely fuck all to do with the rest of the world. And when I came back to England in 1970, it was such a culture shock. I think that's probably what set me crazy. It was a completely different world, something I was not prepared to deal with. But when I was 7 years old, my mother used to go out and play tennis 2 or 3 times a year, 2 or 3 times a week. Ladies Recreation Club, mid-levels.
Very well.
Cool. And my mother used to go out and play tennis, and every Thursday she used to go down to the public library in what was then called Victoria City, and has now probably changed to Glorious October Counter-Revolution Town or something. But then it was Victoria City. And she used to go to the public library and used to bring back books, usually about animals for me, because I was obsessed with animals when I was a kid. And picture books for my little brother. And one day in 1967, my mother came back with a book called Myth or Monster. If you guys ever want to buy me the bestest present you can ever do, get a copy of this kid's book called Myth or Monster, because I've never found out who wrote it. I've never seen a copy since. It was basically a kid's version of On the Track of Unknown Animals. And if anybody could find it, I would love to have a copy, because that book completely and utterly changed my life. It was one of the 3 pivotal moments in my life. That book changed my life. Hearing the Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK changed my life, and having my first fuck changed my life. But that book was as pivotal and as life-changing experience as that. And I went to school the next morning, and the teacher had this thing say, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And little George would say, "I want to be a train driver." And somebody else would say, "I want to be in the army." And I said, "I want to be a monster hunter." And she sent me to the headmistress for impertinence. It took me from 1967 till 1992 to actually decide that this was what I was actually going to do. I spent the next sort of 20 years collecting books, doing a little bit of research on my own. And then in 1992, my ex-wife and I were facing bankruptcy. And I said, "Look, I've been sacked from every job I've ever done. I'm completely useless at working for anybody else. I've just got to work for myself. I want to do. We're going to lose the house anyway. We've got no money. We're going to go bankrupt. Fuck it. We've got 50 quid left in the bank. I want to be a cryptozoologist." And in a very drunken evening, backstage at the Manchester International Tour, after Steve Harvey and Cotton Rebel concert in 1992, me and my ex-wife, and a raving homosexual who was known as Dave the Nonce, started the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And it was a conceptual joke. I didn't think anybody was going to join. It was just my little club, my little gang that happened in my head. It was just an idea. A year or so later, we started printing a magazine. As you've already, no doubt, realised, I have a history in punk rock. I loved Alan and the Ants, and there was a B-side to one of their songs called Animals and Men. And I thought, shit, if we're going to do a magazine about weird shit, about cryptozoology and weird things, I'm going to call it Animals and Men. Nobody's ever actually realised this, it actually just comes from an obscure punk rock B-side. But we did 50 copies of Animals and Men. Nobody bought the bloody things. Again, big financial crisis. And we went along to the Fortean Times Convention in 1994. And I had the original 50 plus a couple of dozen of really shittily, badly photocopied ones in my briefcase. The Centre for Fortean Zoology then only consisted of me and my ex-wife, because Dave the Nonce had been arrested. No, he wasn't arrested for homming up bears. He was arrested for taking a bottle of vodka into a public swimming pool in, I think it was Manchester, and sitting up in the spectators' things, getting drunk and shouting lewd and suggestive comments at the under-14 synchronised swimming. Fuck you, Lauren Coleman, we have got so much better antecedents than you have. You're just a dull hippie who was too scared to go to Vietnam, so you had to pretend you were Fortean. But I'm digressing. Like I said, it's my birthday party and I'll digress if I want to. We got to the young convention, we had no money it was just a stroke of absolute luck that one of the people on the door at the convention, the security team they'd hired, was somebody I knew, because I'd done 4 or 5 tours with Steve Howling, Cockney Rebel. I'd done various bits and bobs for them. I published their fan magazine, I sold their t-shirts, I did their sound occasionally. And one of the guys who'd been on security happened to be on the door at the young convention. He let me in, and I let my ex-wife in through the fire escape. We had absolutely no fucking money at all. I think I had about 3p in my pocket. I went down to the bar, and I met Doc Shields. Wow. Doc and I became firm friends in about 30 seconds. And we essentially just held court in the bar, behaving badly. Doc was banging his baran, and we were bouncing around singing Irish rebel songs, behaving like complete pricks. But people were buying us drinks, so we got wildly drunk. And then along came a reporter from The Guardian. He came up and said, "Gentlemen, I'm trying to do a story about the unconvention. You're obviously part of the Fortean world. Who are you?" And I said, "This gentleman is the wizard of the Western world. And I, dear boy, am the greatest fucking cryptozoologist you're ever going to meet." I wasn't. I was just some fat bloke who published an issue of a magazine that nobody had bought. He published this in The Guardian. He took the swear words out. He put it in The Guardian that I was England's greatest cryptozoologist. By the end of that afternoon, I'd sold 200 copies of the bloody magazine. We had to nip out to the copy shop to photocopy some more. And the Centre for Fortean Zoology was born. 10, what year are we now? 2004. 10 years later, we're on issue 35 of the magazine. We have 400 members in 18 different countries. And over the last few years, we have started doing what I always really wanted to do in the first place. I didn't just want to be a publishing house putting out a fanzine that a few nutcases read. I wanted to finance research. And we have sent people to Puerto Rico, we sent people to Mexico, we sent people to Sumatra, we sent people to America. We're funding research and we're organising research all over the world. I'm absolutely fucking amazed. I never ever thought this was going to happen. But it is. And it's down to you lot. It's not down to me. I mean, it's just my bright idea in the first place. But if we didn't have members, we would not be an organisation. Then, in 1996, my wife decided she'd had enough of living with a fat alcoholic and pissed off. I phoned round all the friends I had in Exeter, and they were all out. Luckily, the last number on my list was the bloke who used to be the roadie in my band. I phoned up, "Oi, Graham, quick, I can't handle this. I think I'm going to kill myself. Will you please come round? I don't want to be by myself."
You did mention there's plenty of free alcohol.
Yeah, by the way, there's plenty of free alcohol. And Graham came round, and we got violently drunk. And at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I said, "Dude, do you want to be deputy director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology?" And he said, I think he said something like, "Okay then." And Graham, with absolutely no knowledge of Fortean Zoology whatever, became the deputy director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology. Up until then, it was all fucking luck. We were chancers. It was just a joke. It never really happened. But the team began to coalesce. Then, at the 1996 convention, I'd met this incredibly weird goth. On the first time I met him, he started telling me what he was a foot fetishist and liked a band called Bauhaus, who did a song which I actually rather disliked called Bela Lugosi's Dead. He started singing it to me and telling me about his foot fetish. Great, we've now got a zoological director. Look, the whole history of the Centre for Fortean Zoology has worked on these happy accidents. Back in 1995, I got given a gig by the Devon County Council Adult Education Committee to do what was going to be called a summer workshop on monster hunting. Only one person bought a ticket. Nobody else bothered to turn up. It was Chris Moyser. I said, "Chris, I'm fucked if I'm giving you a lecture. Come down the pub. I'll give you your ticket money back. I'm coming down the pub. Let's have a few drinks." And he's been with the CFZ ever since. At the annual convention 2 years ago, this guy I vaguely recognised who looked... Do you mind if I'm rude to you, John? He looked like a rent boy in a fucking Andy Warhol room. He came up and I was pissed. And I said, "Hey dude, you want to go to Sumatra?" "Yeah, why not?" And it fucking worked. The whole thing. It's always worked by happy accidents. It's always been in pubs, and it's always been because I've been in the right place at the right time. Darren, I'm trying to think of a sanitised way of being able to explain how you came on board. But Darren came on board just because there was a guy who ran another cryptozoological magazine. His marriage split up, he went bust, I gave him 100 quid for all his archives. And there were letters in there from some geezer called Darren Naish. And essentially I wrote to him trying to get him to subscribe to the magazine. You never have, Darren. I've never had a single fucking subscription payment from you. But, Darren, the whole team just comes together through teamwork. And the thing that's wonderful, that I've known and worked with many of these people for over a decade. I've known these people for years. Nobody ever gets any money out of it. The only person who gets paid is John Fuller. Johnny at the back. Wave to the pretty boys and girls, John. John deserves every penny he gets. He doesn't get very much. But by God, he works harder than any of us. He does all the printing, all the photocopying, all the collating, all the shitty jobs that we haven't, that we can't be asked to do. John, but nobody gets paid apart from John. Everybody does this voluntarily. We put this whole weekend together through volunteers. Dave paid for a ticket. And then he drove all the way down from County Durham. I have no idea how many hours sleep he's had in the last 3 days. He's been doing the sound since Friday lunchtime. From Thursday afternoon, he was actually acting as my butler and doing the bloody washing up. I mean, it's absolute magic. This whole thing comes together because people do it because they want to do it. And they do it because we are a community. Now that was one of the things, seriously for a moment, that made me want to start the Centre for Fortean Zoology. When I started it, when I first realised that I was actually going to be able to do something serious rather than something frivolous within cryptozoology, I looked around at the rest of the world, the rest of the crypto establishment. And Chris, if I start saying anything libelous, as you are the duty solicitor, will you tell me to shut up?
Will do.
Chris, by the way, this is another thing. I mean, Chris incredibly bravely chucks in his safe job as a lecturer at Plymouth Polytechnic and comes back. He decides to become a solicitor. The guy now, all he needs is his 2 years theory. He's now 2 years, what's the
Practice.
Practice, you know, with a thing. And we've now got our own solicitor. I've got a lifetime of free legal advice. This is fantastic.
We need to talk about that later.
I still have the
Don't be libelous.
No, Chris, I still have the Polaroids.
Yeah, okay, and cut rates for everybody in the CFZ as well.
Of course. There was a cryptozoological association there at the time. They were based in America, and there's nothing wrong with being based in America. I'm not being anti-American. I spend a lot of my time in America. I've had several American girlfriends. I like their booze, I like their women, I like their food, I fucking hate their politics. But I've got no problem with America. But these bunch of Yankee arseholes. I'm sorry, Mr. Morris, am I allowed to use the word Yankee arsehole?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. There was actually a 2-hour submission in American court as to whether somebody could call somebody else an arsehole.
Well, could they?
They wouldn't apply in the UK anyway.
They were charging something, I remember this was sort of 10 years ago, they were charging something like 35 quid for a year's subscription, and you didn't get anything. What you did get was occasionally a very dull newsletter coming out saying how the two people in charge of it had just taken expensive trips up the jungle, but, as in a very famous Channel 4 documentary, they climbed the wrong hill by mistake and then came home again. And then, of course, more recently, and this is something that actually does piss me off, that the one of the high officers and thing had spent so much, all the money that he'd taken from the organisation going up the wrong hill, but didn't bother to take health insurance. So when he gets ill, he then puts out a appeal for people to help him with his medical bills. Then suddenly he gets better again. This actually happened twice in the last few years. A guy called Jan Ove Sundberg, and I don't care if I libel that bastard. He, for some reason, got into his head that I was an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, I'm a piss artist. It's a slightly different thing. But he set up a website saying, my research was shit because I was a Satanist, a drug dealer, a paedophile, and a heroin addict.
What's wrong with being a Satanist?
What's wrong with being a heroin addict? At that time, I didn't know what heroin even looked like. And he sent chain letters to everybody saying me and a guy called Dave Walsh were essentially trying to subvert the whole of the Western world. The guy was a complete arsehole. Then he got taken ill. Yes, there is a God. And he asked the organisers of the Fortean Times Convention a couple of years ago if they'd go up on stage and make an appeal so he could pay his medical bills. Bob Rickard, sadly, actually said this in my hearing, and I insisted that if he did, I should go up after him and say, I have an alcohol problem. Can I please have a whip round in the audience and pay my bar bill? I don't know if Bob actually ever made the appeal. I believe that nobody actually gave any money, and I never got around to asking to pay my bar bill, although it has to be said that Fortean Times have managed to keep me liberally in alcohol for nearly 10 years now. But there was this organisation where people would pay enormous sums of money. Occasionally they'd get occasionally they'd get a magazine that was not very interesting. It was usually one of the directors interviewing the other of the directors, and then the magazine after would be the other director interviewing the first one. And then they published an incredibly academic journal, which was most of the people who were members of the faculty of this organisation slapping each other off. Dear Sir, Professor Smith alleges, no, it wasn't even Professor Smith, it was Smith, alleges, blah, 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 blah. How dare he allege, blah, 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 blah. And the next time would be, Dear Sir, Professor Jones alleged that Professor Smith alleged, how the hell can they make the search for unknown animals one of the most exciting things on this planet so fucking boring? This is one of the most interesting things in the world. It is one of the few parts of contemporary science which has still got the ethos of the 19th century boys' own paper adventurer stuff. I mean, fucking hell, Richard, Chris, John, early this year they went into a valley in Sumatra that no European has ever been to before. Christ, we are talking most incredible adventures. We're talking about Graham getting pissed on by vampire bats. We're talking about We're talking about me trying to stop Nick Redfern singing Walsall City and football club chants in a pub, in a bar in the middle of Puerto Rico that's owned by the local mafia. And we're talking about really hardcore stuff here. And they made it so goddamn boring, and they produced no results. And what was worse, the whole ethos of this was to set one person off against the other. It was that Professor Smith could allege that Jones had said this, and Professor Jones could allege that Robinson had said this, and there was no community. They all fucking hated each other. It was nearly as bad as fucking ufology. So I realised that if the Centre for Fortean Zoology, remember at this stage, even after the first convention, we only I'd sold 200 magazines, I think we had 40 members. By the way, I think member number 1, this guy, I've never met him before, but he was our first ever member. Did I sign you up at that convention, or was it
No.
by post? I've never met this guy before. He's been a member right from the beginning, and he turned up on my doorstep on Friday afternoon demanding alcohol. I liked him a lot. But I was determined that if the Centre for Fortean Zoology was going to be more than just a conceptual joke thought up by me, my ex-wife, and Dave the Nonce, that it was got to be fostering a sense of community. This is not about you guys buying t-shirts so we can make the profit on the t-shirts just to send me and Richard off to swan around the world and sit in expensive hotels. Chris Clark, John, Richard, they all started off just as ordinary members. We forget Darren, who still never paid his fucking member. In fact, I don't think I've ever had any money out of you, Moiser, either. But you always give me a bottle of wine at Christmas and you'll completely forget. And you managed to save me a lot of money on my divorce, and even more to forget. And Darren, I've tangentially made quite a lot of money out of some of his research, so we've done very well indeed.
I used to buy lots of books off
Why don't you anymore?
them.
Because you know damn well I always give you free copies anyway. But Richard was just started off as an ordinary punter, just an ordinary member of the organisation. So did Chris, so did John, so did you all. This is an organisation about a community. This is a thing to make We're trying to push back the frontiers of science. We're trying to push back the boundaries of human knowledge. And this is about us. Now guys, I know this sounds like I've got to my Ian Paisley stage of the speech, my rhetoric and my, come on you bastards, I want your fucking money. But the CFZ is actually now growing at a rate that I never believed it could. This ain't rhetoric, this is just the fucking truth. Up until 18 months, 2 years ago, we were growing slowly and things were happening in a manageable thing. Me, Richard and Graham could manage. We knew what we were doing. The last year or so, it's got completely out of hand. We've got more, we have enormous numbers of emails each day. We've started up the British Big Cat Study Group, so we have monthly bulletins to go up on the internet of collating all the sightings of mystery cats in Britain. This autumn, Paul Vella, who many of you will remember from last year, unfortunately due to a family crisis, and this time it was actually a family crisis, not that he couldn't be asked to get out of bed, Paul Vella actually really wanted to come down. He's got some problems. But Paul Vella is starting up the BHM, Bigfoot and Yeti mystery hominid study group within the CFZ. We are intending to set up the lake monster and eventually a sea monster study group within the CFZ. We are growing at an enormous rate. Now, there are two types of organisations. The one that you join, you get your magazine 4 times a year, you sit in your house, you might as well come to a convention and buy the organiser a beer and you can go home again. And there's us. I want to put you guys to work. Please, I want volunteers. We haven't got... a few years ago we had the problem, we didn't have enough money, but we have plenty of time. Now we've got a reasonable amount of money, but we haven't got the time, we haven't got the resources, we haven't got the people. I need computer programmers, I need people who can scan stuff in, who can proofread, who can write the Queen's English reasonably, who can scan in pictures, who can collate information, who can set up databases. We are snowed under with work. We are not doing a fraction of what we could do purely because I can only work 14-hour days, 5 days a week. At the moment, somebody once asked me why it was that the Centre for Fortean Zoology was successful and their particular organisation had been somewhat in the doldrums. And I said that it is because at the moment we're putting in 240 man-hours a week, and that's just the people that work out of the head office in my house. I don't know. I wouldn't even like to think how many hours Nick Redfern puts in the States, Wolf Wharton's putting in Australia, people like Mark Fraser up in Scotland doing the Big Cat Study Group. There are enormous amounts of hours going in, but we need more. So please guys, if later on this afternoon, if any of you have got time, money, expertise, equipment, or free sex that you would like to donate to the Centre for Fortean Zoology, please come and see me. Now, one last thing about getting money before Richard and I talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the last year. If anybody hasn't bought raffle tickets, there are still raffle tickets available, and Richard is going to be drawing out. In fact, now I'm going to get Judith Grant and Newton Mould to do it. Judith, my darling, if you'll come up later on and pull out the raffle tickets, we have got a webcam donated by my Playfair, we have got some excellent Fortean books, and we've got Nibbles the Comedy Duck, all of which are available. I sincerely hope so. But at the end of the afternoon, the CFZ works 24 hours a day, 365 and a quarter days a year. Please guys, if there's anything that you can do to contribute to what we're doing, because it's not just what me, Richard and Graham are doing, it's what we are all doing. What we as, and I'm doing my damnedest not to lapse into sort of shitty hippie rhetoric about wild mammals, part of the global village. The trouble is we actually are, and I'm probably the global village idiot. But I'm trying not to lapse into emotive hippie bullshit. But we are a truly global organisation. We are the only people in the world doing what we do. Please guys, we need your help. Fuck it, do you want to hear what we've been doing for the last year and hear some bad jokes from me and Richard? Or shall we just go to the bar and get pissed? Question? Well, we can probably do. Terry, I always knew you were my kind of people. What have we been doing in the last year then, Richard? Come on, wake up. I'll stop talking now. Shall we do the last year, what we've done since the last time, the last weird weekend?
Oh, last weekend.
Switch it on.
It's got this red knob.
Ooh, technology. Yeah, Richard, you have to press the red knob.
That's not technology, that's biology, Richard.
Yes, I've always wanted you to make my knob red.
Yes, sweetheart.
Graham, dear boy, can you do one of your most important jobs as the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology? Encore cerveza, por favor. No, it should be ultra cerveza, por favor. My Spanish always was shit. I can buy cigarettes and get laid and occasionally get beer, so... Anyway, Richard, what have we done since October?
We brought some new underfelt for the rug.
And then at the beginning of November, me and the wonderful Matthew Williams flew off to America. And Matt and I did this incredibly bizarre 4-day conference run by this bunch of complete fucking nutters. You've got an American millionaire who honestly believes in the physical existence of crashed UFOs. Tosser. And he got together people. He wouldn't have anyone at his conference who wasn't talking about UFO crash retrievals. I wanted to go to America, so I talked about UFO crash retrievals. Because basically that gave me the excuse to fly down to Texas with Nick Redfern for 4 days and hook up with a guy called Chester Moore Jr. And this guy is absolutely fantastic. This is another one of the reasons I want to raise money. You would not believe what this guy has done. Can I have a technical assistant please hold up a copy of the latest issue of the magazine in this? Some of you will already have seen it, some of you won't. Chester Moore single-handedly rediscovered the red wolf in Texas. Whether the red wolf is actually a distinct species or a colour morph is still... Is it a hybrid? Hybrid colour morph? Darren, what's the latest? But whatever, it had been declared extinct in Texas in 1978. This guy rediscovered it and is now raising money to buy 2,000 acres of Texas swampland in the way, to use his colourful phrase, in order to stop some redneck motherfucker shooting the lot. We want to buy...
Is it Australian then?
No, fuck off, I'm just drunk. He's buying this swamp in Texas, and he wants us to help him buy this swamp in Texas. The CFZ is not just about finding new animals, but when we find them, we've got to stop some redneck motherfucker from shooting them. And if we can buy 2,000 acres of swamp in Texas, I'm sure you'd agree that's a damn good thing to do. Especially if we find oil under it. I mean, we could sort of asphalt over the whole thing and set up a glue factory. And, we could shoot some of the bulls and then sell souvenirs. But apart from that, I spent some time with Chester in Texas, and I'd always thought that Texas was wild prairies and John Wayne, but you wouldn't believe it. Some of these swamps, they are the most impenetrable places I've ever been on the planet. I've never been to more impenetrable temperate forest. In fact, it's more impenetrable than most of the rainforests I've been into. It is solid, either forest or glutinous mud. The only way to get through it is to go through the bayous and the creeks through the middle in a canoe. And in this forest, it's not just Bigfoot sightings. And that's the weird thing. Up until last November, I always thought Bigfoot was mostly bullshit. I've never had any problem with believing in the Yeti, in the Yarra Nation. I've never had any problem with believing in Orang Pendek in the East Indies. But I always thought the idea of an unknown species of higher primate in North America, especially when people say in Texas, we just know it's all John Wayne, all Wells and George Bush. I thought, nah, this is nonsense. And you see these swamps, and you see the pictures Chester has taken with them. Graham, what do you call thermal imaging cameras? And you see the footprints. Until you've actually seen, I'm sure you've all seen photographs of Grover Crantz's Bigfoot pictures with the big footprints with the dermal ridges, the fingerprint things on the feet. I've seen the photographs, I thought, yeah, mildly interesting, but nah, you can't get apes in North America. When you see a first generation plaster cast that's still got the earth on it from the place where the plaster cast was taken, and you can see incredibly distinct dermal ridges. And I tell you what, Darren, remind me when we get home, I'd like you to see those, because I think those plaster casts are completely outstanding. They're up in my bedroom somewhere, I'll find them for you. And he actually made me do a complete 180-degree U-turn on the subject of unknown primates in North America, but that's not all there are in those forests. He's got stories of giant snapping turtles. Now, there are 2 species, also Darren, please, in the same way as Chris has interrupted me on a legal matter, Darren, if I say anything that's zoologically bullshit, please interrupt. It'll give me a chance to make some good jokes at your expense.
Interrupt on the beer, mate. Drink some of that before you split.
Terry, you are rapidly becoming...
John has got this new theory that he developed whilst in these swamps, which is in winter, snakes shed their skins and become fish.
I believe that to be the case. But, in North America there are 2 species of snapping turtle. You have the common snapper and the alligator snapper. Darren, what's the upper size for both of them, roughly? Roughly 4 foot along for the alligator snapper, considerably smaller, about 2 and a bit for the other one, the common snapper. He has shown me photographs of, because in this part of Texas there's still, it's just over the border from Louisiana where they actually still hunt, and although alligator snappers are supposed to be globally protected, you can still hunt them and make soup out of them in Louisiana. And he's shown me photographs of shells which absolutely dwarf these, absolutely enormous. You guys, anybody who's ever been to my house has seen the soft-shelled turtle which I got from the landing. You all, is there anybody who doesn't know what a soft-shelled turtle roughly looks like? And as I haven't got any pictures, then I can't, please, just for heaven, does everybody roughly know what they look like? Can you imagine a soft-shelled turtle with a head the size of the head of a horse? This is absolutely outstanding. When Chester was a kid, he was out fishing with his dad, and they saw a head and neck come out of the water. And he said it wasn't a lake monster, it was nothing unknown, it was a soft-shelled turtle. It had the long snout, it had the 2 little nostrils, it even had the way that the skin is stretched back over what would be the eyebrows, as they actually had eyebrows. But its head was this fucking big. That would make a soft-shelled turtle that's about 14 foot long. I thought, wow, is this guy mad? Is this guy just spinning me a line? But no, he's come up with he's produced a whole string of evidence to support his other claims. Like I said, he actually managed to rediscover the red wolf himself. And like the picture that we've got on a recent issue of Animals and Men on the cover, people say to us, why aren't there any pictures of cryptids? Well, here we have full colour, very clear, picture of a cryptid with the camera track, time and date on the side. What fucking more do you want? This guy is absolutely amazing. The stuff they got in these forests, swamps, is amazing. There's sightings of the greater ivory-billed woodpecker down there. You've got giant soft-shelled turtles, you've got giant snapping turtles, you've got these big footy things. And you've got what sound very much like a population of, what are those weird cats that look like hamsters and they're not? Jaguarundi. You've got this weird population of cats which appear to be Jaguarundi, which are in a place where there's not supposed to be any there's never supposed to have been any Jaguarundi. This place is an absolute fucking goldmine. That's something else we want to do. Over the next 3 years, we're going to Sumatra, look at the death burn, which we'll talk a bit more.
All right, Pendek.
No, tell them about Mongolia. Tell them about the death burn.
Mongolia, we're hoping to raise enough cash to around next May, June time, go out to look at something called the Mongolian death worm. It's reported by the nomads in the southern Gobi Desert. They call it Alagoi korkoi, which translates as intestine worm because it looks like a length of cow's intestine. They say it's 3 to 5 feet long, blood red in colour, looking like a huge salami or draft excluder. It lives under the sand, it only comes up around May, June, July sort of time. They say it can spit a corrosive yellow saliva that acts like acid, and it can generate great blasts of electricity that can kill 3 grand camel. I want to go over there and catch one with my bare hands, a la Steve Irwin.
Push it too hard.
Because I'm from the north, mate. It's unlikely to be a true worm at all. We think it's an amphisbaena or worm lizard, a strange archaic group of burrowing reptiles that are not lizards and not snakes and look like giant disembodied willies. This one we think is the giant of the group. I'm convinced I can catch it. My colleague of mine, Adam Davis, who was here last year, he was over there. He says he's narrowed the search area down to 2 areas that are about 3 miles square each, and they have streams running through them. My plan is to cause little localised floods by damming the streams, force them to the surface, catch them, and bring them back to England alive.
But we have a slight problem. We're going to have to bring them back on the Chinese National Airway. Post September the 11th, can you imagine any airline being so fucking stupid as to allow us to bring something back when we put it on the bill of lading? 4 Mongolian death worms. It will come back as 4 times Mongolian amphisbaena worm lizard species. But we need to be able to hire the services of a Chinese interpreter. We've got the Mongolian interpreter out there, but I need to fucking bribe the people in Air China. So I need somebody who knows what they're talking about, who can then liaise with Chris, who can tell me if I'm going to get arrested or not, and then bloody talk to the Chinese people back in Beijing on the phone to deal with this. I need people who can actually read Chinese when I get the facts back and all Johnny Foreigner lingo, which I can't understand. We need somebody who's actually pretty good at... You can speak Chinese?
No, a good friend of mine who recently married a Chinese interpreter.
Fan-fucking-tastic. Terry, you are getting better and better at this. Are you coming to the dinner tonight?
I might.
Well, you better do. They've got 28 different types of vodka.
Don't you think he looks like Viv Stanchel out of the Bonzos?
He does. This guy is getting better and better. Terry, where have you been all my life? I think the proper answer to that is that I was actually chasing Judith. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, we've got to talk later, man.
Yeah.
But we need people who can design and build crates. They've got to be lightweight ones that we don't have to pay enormous amounts of money to take out, that these fuckers aren't going to be able to get out of in the aeroplane on the way back. We've got to work.
Oh, yes.
We've got to find somebody who can analyse whether the sand in that part of the desert has any particular chemical qualities, which means we've got to bring 1/2 ton of the fucking stuff back to Exeter if we're going to keep them alive. We need so many people who are experts in their own particular field. Once again, it's just something, please, if there's something which you can bring, if there's something you can do to help, apart from just buying the drinks, which is always wonderful, but if there's something you guys can do to help our ongoing research, fucking do it. This organisation belongs to all of us. It's not me, it's not Richard, it's not Graham. But I digress. Also next year, we're going back to Sumatra.
Yeah, we want to go back to Sumatra, concentrate on the lowland forest and the Kabul people. We want to go out with a kaboo into the jungle to look for orang pendek and the giant horns or naga snakes. Whether we can do both in 1 year is debatable, but they're both things that are on the cards that we want to do within the next couple of years.
The important thing is that we're going to be making the first written record of the oral traditions. When I say oral traditions, don't snigger, Darren. I know I sniggered every double entendre that I could make up out of your talks all weekend. I really wanted to come and talk one time about Homo erectus. That would just be so good. But we're going to make the first written collection. We'll publish in book form of the oral traditions about these animals from the Kubu people, these nomads who have not got a written history. Terry, you managed to answer everything else I wanted to do all evening. Has any mates of yours ever married an anthropologist? And if so, does she have big tits?
No, one of them's married to a Russian speaker.
Brilliant. Because actually I'm looking for a Russian speaker for something completely different, because, total digression, Paul Vellers managed to get a hold for us of the archives of Dmitry Bayanov, but all written in Russian. We need somebody to translate them. We've got all this stuff coming in, we've got so much stuff happening. We need help to do it. In May this year, I flew to Illinois on a vain attempt to get laid, and no, it didn't happen. But I was basically going to chase up reports of black panthers, weird black big cats that have been seen in the Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois on the Kentucky border for the last 200 years. I have uncovered a string of eyewitnesses. I've got a house we can stay in for nothing when we're there. I've got 2 wonderful rednecks who've got a pack of coon dogs, which they swear will be able to tree these fucking things when we find them. I have got various members of the Illinois National Guard. For the first time in my life, Tim Masters would be proud of me. I've got my own private army. This is fantastic. But we need the money. We want volunteers. We want people. Yes, Richard?
You have access to a dark gun.
We do not have access to a dark gun because, as I'm afraid my legal advisor told me, nobody would be so fucking stupid as to give me a dart gun. And there's various members of the CFZ faculty, mentioning no names, Mr. Williams, that nobody would be stupid to give animal tranquilizers to.
You could buy that sort of stuff across the counters in children's toy stores, can't you, in the States?
You're kidding me.
No, dart guns. You know, along with grenade launchers and other things. They're quite brilliant.
Well, yeah, that brings us to the next problem we've got. We're going back to Puerto Rico early next year. And I'm not quite sure who's going to win the American election. But I bet it'll be Bush. I bet that bastard managed to swing it again. But can you imagine in post-9/11 times any American administration allowing 8 people from Britain all dressed up in military uniform bringing a Geiger counter into the country? Again, we've got a hell of a lot of stuff happening. We're doing an expedition back to... I was in Puerto Rico about 3 weeks ago doing a fact-finding mission for this. Again, we've got a house, we've got the complete Canavenas National Guard, we've got the local civil defence, we've got a fucking helicopter. We've got everything. What we haven't got is the funds to pay for a 5-man expedition to go there. I have been talking to a potential source of income a couple of days ago who I think is very likely to put up some money for it. Simon, my boss, who you met earlier, he's very interested because some of the stuff we're doing, investigating the apparent serious anomalies in the freshwater fauna of some streams which are coming off the major mountain of Puerto Rico. He's interested in that. He's actually likely to be buying a stake in this, so if we find something new, he'll be able to exploit it. Stake. He'll be able to exploit it and plug it at tropical fish shops, so we're likely to be able to get some money from him. I've been talking to people this weekend about some other sources of income, but we need money, we need equipment, we need people. Any of you guys fancy spending a month in Puerto Rico, getting covered in mud and talking Spanish? Don't speak at once.
I want to do it.
Scott, dear boy, what is it about the cheap seats over here? You and Terry have never ceased to surprise me the whole time.
That's all I know is Spanish, apart from just Cerveza probably.
Apparently in Portugal...
Well, of course, if you'd like to get 2 more beers in, mine's allowed and 9, that's cool. But we need people who want to come, and we need foot soldiers, we need people who want to do this stuff.
And it's not just the chupacabra, there's a whole host of other weird things going down in Puerto Rico. There are apparently large white eel-like creatures that live in caves and occasionally get washed out by storms, and there's reports of gigantic snakes. There's only one type of snake on Puerto Rico, and it's a tiny, tiny little thing, a little wee tiny... These things are supposed to be in excess of 20 feet long, and they live up in the valleys of the jungles.
I don't know who's got my mobile, but it's ringing. It's probably something saying to wish me happy birthday.
That's not right.
Tell them to piss off.
Now, I wonder if I can actually get a good laugh. That's what. Leslie said. Yes, Dad. Yeah. Can I phone you back? Give me half an hour. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I'll phone you back in about half an hour. What I don't do, the things I do which I shouldn't do, but when my dad phones up and wishes me happy birthday, even I don't get you laughed out. But Puerto Rico, all sorts of fucking incredible things are happening. Now, the one big thing which has been intriguing me for years is why, I've interviewed now, I think it's 58 different sets of people who've either seen what they claim is the chupacabra or who have had their animals attacked by them. Why is it only one of them has ever seen that said that they saw the creature with the spikes coming out of its back actually attacking a sheep? This one was obviously barking fucking mad. He was going on about how there was a whole fleet of UFOs and black helicopters and this and that and things with laser beams coming out of their eyes. Of the people I've spoken to, the people in the lowland, the people who get satellite television, the people who have been corrupted by a disgusting Western civilization, they are the ones who got the ones who get X-Files on cable. They're the ones who come out with the bullshit about how the chupacabra came out of a flying saucer, how this happened, and how they got missing time after having their pet Labrador being eviscerated. The people who I trust, who are the farmers up in the hills, you've got a weird thing. Just let me give you a quick zoology lesson. You have the mountain in the middle that has a rainforest. Then just below that you have a small band of temperate forest. Then you have this weird sort of almost, it's like a sort of circular plateau that has this weird pampa-style grassland. This is where most of the chupacabra sightings have taken place. And this is where the farmers I've spoken to, they've seen this thing. They say it has the face like the devil. They say it has the spikes down its back. It doesn't have red eyes and wings. And they've never seen it sucking blood. They've just seen it crossing the road in the middle of the night out of the corner of their sort of car headlights. And most of them, because the biggest cash crop in Puerto Rico is bananas or plantains, the relatives of bananas which are savoury. What is really exciting is they have told me how regularly over the past 15 years, and the most recent one I have got of these sightings was 9 weeks ago, they have had their planting trees not just ringed like a squirrel they bark around, but chewed into the sort of fibrous flesh of the tree trunk, which sounds very, very much to me like what happened when I was a little boy living in Hong Kong, and my dad's boss, who was the colonial secretary, who lived up at the top of the peak and had 2 banana trees in his garden, one night which were bitten open and cut down by 2 Hodgson's porcupines. What these people are reporting has got fuck all to do with vampires. I'm not saying I've got the answer to what the chupacabra is. I'm not saying I know what's doing the killings. And I'm not saying that I know what the people who say they have seen coming out of UFOs. But I'm damn sure I know what the spiky creature people see at night crossing the road is. If it's not a porcupine, it is something very, very allied to it. Now, Darren, I'm going to throw something onto you, sorry, as a total drop of the hat. But we have sightings of something which appears to be a very weird and highly specialised rodent in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico is somewhere with a historical precedent.
I'm sure by now most of you are quite bored with hearing me lecturing to you about obscure extinct animals, so I'll keep this very brief. But today Puerto Rico has a, what you would call a Porcy-specific macrofauna. It has hardly any large animals. The Puerto Rican mammalian fauna is rubbish. They have 13 species of native mammals and all of them are bats. But those of you that attended my talk last year at Weird Weekend about extinct weird animals from various island groups, you might remember I kind of made the point that until recently, pretty much all of the island groups everywhere in the world were absolutely full of really cool, bizarre animals until very recently. And of course, only as people have started to spread throughout the world, they basically eradicated everything everywhere. This was the case for the Caribbean islands, the Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles, and until about 1750, Puerto Rico and the other Greater Antillean islands had a really interesting and diverse mammalian fauna. They had abundant monkeys, large ground sloths, and other animals. And among the most interesting animals they had, in view of John's speculation that chupacabras might be based on spiky rodents, Puerto Rico was home to about 7 species of large spiky rodents until about 1700, 1750. And several of these belong to a group of rodents called the spiny rats, which most of you, if you're familiar with rodents in the pet trade, you probably know what spiky rats are, spiny rats. Some of them are very big, up to the size of kind of a domestic cat, or maybe a bit bigger. Like I say, very recently extinct, large rodents, similar to the hoochers that still exist on Cuba and other Greater Antillean islands, and yet with large porcupine-style spikes on their backs. There were other large rodents on Puerto Rico until very recently, including animals called the heptaxodontids, which are rodents about the size of pigs. And all of these things were eaten into extinction by the Native Americans when they invaded through when they travelled through the Greater Antillean Islands to get toward the Lesser Antilles. They destroyed the animals as they went, and there you have it. possible fossil animals that appear to match the eyewitness descriptions of the chupacabra.
So what we're going to do, everybody who's been on an expedition to Puerto Rico trying to catch the chupacabra before has gone looking for a vampire. We're going to go looking for a porcupine. I bet we catch the bastard. But we need volunteers, we need money, we need expertise, we need people who can do things which we can't do. So please, once again, guys, we need your help. Look, I've been rattling on for too goddamn long. I'm very, very proud of what we've achieved. Up until the day that my mother died, she used to say, Jonathan, when are you going to get a proper job? My answer, Mother, I earn 50 grand a year, I drive a Jaguar, I don't have to get my hair cut, I get out of bed in the morning, and I travel around the world at other people's expense. I think that's a pretty good job. But it's more than that. I have the honour, and I mean it, and I'm not being pretentious, I have the honour of being the director of this organisation. And I want to tell you something. Last September, nearly a year ago, Graham Birdsall, who was the editor of UFO magazine, director of an organisation called Quest International, died. It's no secret that we hated each other's guts.
Really?
Yeah, we hated each other.
I didn't know that.
But the real tragedy is that the organisation which Graham set up and the enormous archive of information and the network he set up didn't even last 4 months after his death. I'm in pretty shitty health. I'm not playing the sob card to you, but I'm a manic depressive, I've got heart disease, I'm a diabetic, and I drink far too much and take far too little exercise. But I put too much work and love and effort into this organisation for it just to die just because I do. I was amazed that when Graham Birdsall died, they had to cancel the conference. We actually had the Leeds conference last year. We had a contingency plan. If I had to go in the hospital, we'd go on. Richard's father died about 14 days before the weekend started. We carried on. We have got a contingency plan in place, and now, for the first time all day, I'm not taking the piss out of Chris Moyser, but we're using his legal expertise. We're trying to put together a charter, which means that the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is far bigger than me, or Graham, or Richard, it's far bigger than the sum total of everybody in this room. It is bigger, in fact, than the sum total of the 400 odd people who are members. It is something which potentially could be absolutely fucking massive. It is going to carry on. Within the next 5 years, we are going to have a permanent visitors centre. We will have a resource centre where people can get hold of our archives and our library without having to go online. The whole stuff will be online as well, where people will be able to see that and our animals' collections, both preserved and living specimens. These things are going to be there for people. And these things are going to outlive me. They're going to outlive Graham. They're even going to outlive Richard, who's about 15 years younger than me and a damn sight more healthy. This is an organisation that, if we do it properly, is going to last well beyond the lifetimes of anybody in this room, and it will last to the end of this century and well into the next one. The Society for Psychical Research was set up in 1870 and they're still going. I don't know when the RSPCA was set up, but you have organisations that actually do last for long lengths of time. The CFZ is one of those organisations. And remember the most important thing. It was set up by me and my ex-wife and a guy called David the Nonce. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming. Okay, can I please, Richard, can you give Judith the
Not yet, I've got to
cases?
go and get me unpack the tackle.
Oh, for God's sake, Richard. Can't you actually leave your genitals alone? So I suppose we've got about 10 minutes now. Somebody ask me some questions while Richard goes off for a pee. Any questions, or even better, anybody's going to give me money? Oh God, it's you, Churchill. Yeah, as long as you give me a pint of lager and lime. Anybody else? Any questions, or even better, any volunteers for people who've actually got stuff that they can do? Ronan?
What happened to Dave the Nonce eventually?
No, apparently Dave the Nonce is still in a mental hospital somewhere up north. As we all know, it's grim up north. Anybody else? Even better.
When are you doing the lottery?
We're going to do the lottery when Richard comes back from having a pee. And so I would like the lovely Judith, oh God, she's pissed off. I will have the... Yeah, the lovely Terry! We won't be sexist, we won't just always have girls. Terry, you can come up in a minute, you can do the lovely Terry, my glamorous assistant, will do the lottery. But guys, is there anybody here in this audience who've actually got some stuff you think you could do that can help? Even if it's some really abstruse, something odd, some weird talent you've got. And please, no obscene remarks from Matthew at the back. But anybody, you know, anything that you guys can do, what Charles Ford called a wild talent, anything that you guys can do, whether it is wildly eccentric and bizarre or incredibly banal, just like giving up a couple of hours a week just to scanning loads of photographs or print scanners. Please guys, we need you. Now I've got to keep on talking now, or it has a P, so ask some questions.
Tell people how much it costs to join the organisation and what they get for their money. That would be good.
Fucking hell, that's a bit fucking logical from you, Matthew. So there's a man who kept me up till quarter past 5 in the morning as we talk drug-soaked bollocks, and then wakes me up the next morning by playing that god-awful rave music. Yeah, you join the CFZ if you are in England. I think most of you are actually members of the CFZ, but the membership, which lasts for 4 issues of the magazine rather than for a year, because although we try to put out 4 issues a year, things sometimes just get in the way. Sometimes things, you know, it's 4 or 5 months between an issue rather than 3 months. A 4-issue subscription to the magazine, which gives you a membership for that length of time, is a tenner. If you join today, you get an extra free magazine. If you give me a lot of money to do something, I'll probably give you a hug and get you to buy me a beer as well. We have a wide range of merchandise and stuff, which we do. Literally, I'm totally unashamedly commercial. We sell the stuff because we need money, because we do an awful lot with the money. I have people come up to me and say, you can't be a real researcher in the paranormal, you're only in it to make money. Fuck off. I actually live off my invalidity benefit. 9 years ago I was signed off sick and told that I wasn't fit to actually work again. Since then I do approximately 14 hours a day. But I live off probably about 30 quid a week over dole money. Every penny I earn, not just from the Centre for Fortean Zoology work, but from the work we get paid to do the administration for Befora, we do the layouts and an awful lot of the stuff for Tropical World magazine. We've got 4 or 5 other clients. We do work for Phenomena magazine. Every penny we earn goes into research, and quite a lot of the time half my invalidity pension goes in there anyway. So guys, if there's anything that you guys feel that you can do, anything that you guys feel that you want to do, please come up and see me in the bar. I will be in the bar, I will be chatting. I'm just here to do what needs to be done. Now I tell you what, David, do you mind if we just have a slight change in... Oh, here's Richard. We haven't got a slight change. We have Richard and his lovely assistant, the gorgeous, the delectable, the sweet, the beautiful Terry Hunt, is going to come up.
The thing is up the bar and he's having Guinness, it takes a long time to cool.
Oh, well, fuck him. Anybody who's called Churchill's got to be a good bloke. Have you got your tickets, Richard? Oh, can't get her. Thinks she's a cat whiskers, she does. I think the fact that the final closing remarks is as fucking chaotic as everything else this weekend is probably quite a good sign. I was actually about to get Dave to do his special soft shoe shuffle, but I think we'll leave that till the end. So, Richard, your glamorous assistant, the lovely Terry, is going to pull out the prizes.
We might fish one out that belongs to whoever's up the bar, I don't know.
God all fucking mighty, this is getting really chaotic, isn't it? It wasn't like this when we had the Colonel last year. What I want to do next year, I want to get all the CFZ regional reps, and that includes you, Moisa. I want them in the CFZ t-shirt and the combat trousers. I'm going to have the Colonel here next year, and I'm going to get him to inspect you bastards. We'll have a parade outside, we'll give the bugger an honour guard.
If his tickets is still waiting on that discussion.